A chapter about typography would not be complete without Kelly's favorite keyboard shortcuts, so here are a few. Before we begin, I am going to switch to the typography workspace, and now I will go to my type tool, aiming for the words The Adventures of Sherlock Holmes anywhere in the middle. I will zoom in with Command plus or Control plus, and I will wheel up with my mouse. What I will do, a Select All, Command A or Control A, and this keyboard shortcut works even in Microsoft applications. On your keyboard, on the Mac, you hit Command Shift period. Period is the same key as your greater than key, so each time I hit it, you will notice that the type is getting bigger into point increments. Command Shift or Control Shift will make it smaller into point increments. Try this in all Adobe programs. Now there is no setting to change the increment to less than 2 at a time. Although InDesign Illustrated do let you change that increment, I can move in bigger increments. So let's do Command Option Shift comma to go smaller 5 at a time, or in Windows, Control Alt Shift comma is your last stand key. So Control Alt Shift period, figure 5 at a time, Control Alt Shift comma, smaller 5 at a time. On the Mac, Command Option Shift period, bigger 5 at the time, Command Option Shift smaller 5 at a time. I love these, and I am sticking with Myriad Pro, the built-in font, but I will change this to bold, and I will go to the character panel, and I pretty much always prefer optical kerning. However, letter spacing to any good designer will be something that they want to fine-tune. If I click in between the S and H in Sherlock, I love this shortcut. Just Option, left arrow or Alt left, and right arrow is changing the kerning, the space between a pair of characters. If I triple click, I select the whole line, and I will just hit Command Shift comma on the Mac or Control Shift comma on Windows twice to make it 2 points smaller, then 4 points smaller. The same key for kerning works for tracking. If I want to spread this headline across the top, I can hold Option down or Alt down and hit just my right arrow key to do tracking. Option or Alt left arrow tracks tighter, so Option or Alt right arrow looser. Letter spacing or tracking, Option or Alt left arrow tighter, letter spacing or tracking, and again in between two characters, Option or Alt left and right arrow does kerning. You will see those two separate fields for that. Kerning is always when you see the flashing cursor or between two characters. Tracking is always to highlight a text. Now I will come back and triple click this. Turned back on optical kerning so every letter spaces out of the box current, and I will go to my Move tool, then back to my Type tool so I can get into this paragraph text. This was point type. I simply clicked once up here to create a text field, but with this I drew a text box in advance. Control or space it with the page, and even move over here and rewrap the text if I so choose. I will do a Select All, and I am going to switch the fonts to something that looks like an old school typewriter. Actually, I won't be going down alphabetically to Prestige Elite Standard. I love this look for older text, but I will stick with the same headline style. I will triple click on Adventure 1, A Scandal in Bohemia, and I will make this Myriad Pro. In fact, since there are styles, I can clear out the basic paragraph, removing the override of my font change to Prestige Elite, and it goes back to Myriad Pro, and I could choose bold, and I could hit Command Shift period or Control Shift period to make this visually bigger, or Command Shift comma, Control Shift comma to make it smaller. I'm going to do a Select All now, Control A or Command A, and to separate a subhead and each paragraph, I will use a space after. I think I will do 8 points and press Return or Enter to accept that. Not quite big enough, so I love clicking here and using my up arrow key for subtle moves or typing 9. If you use Shift and your up arrow key, the space after, only the white space between paragraphs moves a half a point at a time instead of smaller increments where it's going 0.05 to 4.05 to 5.05. That's increment adding it. So I could just type in 12 to get back where I wanted to be. All right, so few other keyboard shortcuts. If I click in front of this paragraph, Shift and your down arrow will highlight a line at a time. If I just hit my left, I go to the beginning of the selection and note all of the shortcuts work in Photoshop and Illustrator as well. Command Shift and down arrow will highlight the entire paragraph. On the PC, that would be Control Shift down arrow, and I am just hitting my left arrow to go to the beginning of the paragraph. Command Shift and your end key, and is over near page up, page down, and home. Command Shift End, or on the PC, Control Shift End highlights to the end of the story. Even stuff you can't see. Left arrow every time to go to the beginning of the text, and Shift right arrow or Shift left arrow is one letter at a time. I will finish by doing Command Shift, and actually I am on a laptop, so I have to get what I call the freaking nuisance key, the little FN, which is really function. But I am hitting Command FN, Shift, and your right arrow key is End. If you are a laptop, you might have to use that function key to get to Home or End, or Page Up or Page Down. But the last shortcut is your leading shortcut, which I find very easy. Option up arrow, and the first time you go up, if I look at my character panel, it just went to 0. So don't be alarmed. All align are exactly on top of one another. I can do option down arrow, and as I hit option or alt down arrow, it's going 2 point at a time to increase or decrease the leading or line spacing. So a review of the ones that work with your arrow keys. Option left and right arrow are kerning and tracking. Option up and down arrow are leading. On the PC, alt right arrow or left arrow, depending on whether highlighted. Alt down arrow will increase leading, and alt up arrow will decrease leading. Command Shift C will center. Command Shift L will left align. Command Shift align. On the PC, Control Shift C to center, Control Shift R to right align, or Control Shift L to left justify. Now that is review of all of my favorite keyboard shortcuts for type that work in Photoshop, Illustrator, and InDesign. Practice with this video a few times until you get good at them, and then you have to think about where you go to align text or format text. You will just be able to use a quick shortcut.